Evening, everybody. That's very polite. Welcome to this Executive Cabinet meeting. We seem to get some of this feedback at the moment, Matthew. We've been having it the other night in group meeting. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, yeah. Good evening, welcome to this Cabinet meeting with feedback. It's a bit like the Beatles, isn't it, Alistair? The 7th Beatle album. You banged on about it enough last week. Move on. When you're speaking, please remember to speak towards the microphone so everyone can hear you. Try not to obstruct your look away from the cameras because people at home can't follow, allegedly. And if anyone has any issues at all dialing in, please let Democratic Services know. Different device. Okay, we'll do that. I think we'll share a device, shall we? That's better. First item is apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Southern. Anybody else? Matthew?
No other apologies, Chair.
Councillor. Right, well, he's here online and not in person. Councillor Murray is running late. She's at a school event, so she will be here when the school have finished with her. She was retaking her GCSEs. She's not, I don't think, but I'll confirm that later when she gets here. Right, okay. The first item of business is the minutes of the meeting held 12th of October. Any issues with those minutes anybody's got? No. I'll propose them. Anybody happy to second those? Seconded by Councillor France. All those in favour, please show. That's everybody. Great. Nobody against. Are there any declarations of interest for this meeting? No. And item 3, any public questions, Matthew?
No public questions, Chair.
Excellent, excellent. Right. We romp on to item 4, which is the overview and scrutiny committee report that I think is supposed to be done by Councillor Riggott, but Kim is going to present this, I think, at the meeting. Is that possible? Is that not right? Peter Wilson.
Is it?
It's not Peter Wilson. It's not doing overview and scrutiny report.
There's 2 cabinet members who would come before me if it was a cabinet member, but it's not even that. Would you like me to present? Yeah.
Oh, the chief executive volunteering. God loves a volunteer.
Willingly.
Sorry, Kim, I thought your name was next to it, but I'll let Chris do it.
Presented to the Cabinet is the Overview and Scrutiny Task Group for Empty Properties, which was a task group established by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee some time ago. It has met over the course of 6 months and has produced the report in the agenda pack. This is presented to the Cabinet this evening for them to receive. The process that we have for Overview and Scrutiny task groups is that the Cabinet will receive it. The relevant Cabinet member, which I think in this case would mainly be Councillor Howarth, would then take that away and review it and come back to Cabinet in due course with a full action plan of delivering the recommendations, which are summarised on agenda page. Are they summarised? 10. Thank you very much. On agenda page 10. And there are 11 recommendations in front of you. So yes, for this evening, it is for the Cabinet to accept a note rather than to take any action.
I'll try that one, if you don't mind for a minute. No, I'll do that one. Any questions or comments, queries, Councillor France?
Yeah, just to say I'm particularly appreciate recommendation number 10 about the looking at individual empty properties and using compulsory purchase order powers if need be, because I won't bore you again with my long-term empty property. I'm sure you all know it. You can probably draw a picture of it by now. But yeah, thank you for that, and let's hope we can move something forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Morwood.
You just said that it would probably go to the executive member for housing. Will that depend on where you decide to place it? because at the moment it's in a number of different directorates. So is it the cart before the horse, as it were? I'm just asking the question. It's part of planning in the past.
I'm happy for the cabinet to determine. Obviously, the portfolios don't exactly marry into any officer directorate structure. So, in terms of the recommendation, in terms of the clarification of where an officer with responsibility for empty properties sits, it is that won't really then impact on which portfolio would sit within. It's a decision for the cabinet.
Okay, any other comments, questions? I'm just looking online, nobody's raised any concerns. So the proposal is that the Cabinet accepts those task group recommendations on page 10. Somebody proposed that. Okay, and seconded. Thank you, Margaret. All those in favour, please show. Right, excellent, that's endorsed. Item 5, Councillor Wilson, the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report. Take it away.
Thank you, Alistair. The report sets out the position we are in the second quarter of the financial year. So members may recall that at the last cabinet, not the last cabinet, but the last time we brought the revenue budget updates to the cabinet, it showed quite a severe projected overspend. In the region of about £700,000. So you will note on this report that has actually come down, not drastically, but come down to a projection now for the end of the year of £569,000. So it is movement in the right direction, albeit still it is a challenging deficit to face. So the two primary reasons for that forecast overspend, as you'll recall from the last time we discussed this, are the pressures brought about by the utility costs. So of course we've had a small reduction in our utility costs, but the government support that was in place is finished. So of course at the moment we have to budget for the fact that that support's not in place. Prices haven't come down as much as perhaps as what we projected, although we did project a 50% increase in the cost of utilities. So it wasn't as if we weren't building in quite a bit of room there. But that's still been the pressure there. And then the second pressure is the agreement with staff on the salaries. So of course, again, that's a pressure on the council that again we've got to factor in. So they're the two primary reasons. And while you've got a breakdown in the reports of each directorate and where the overspend and underspends are, as each paragraph tells you, probably the fundamentals in most directorates obviously are those things like salaries and the additional costs to which we just refer. I think in terms of the directorates, without going through each one in detail, obviously the detail is there. Clearly, the biggest projected overspend there is the work in property services. So there's a lot of maintenance work there, and then the other one is major projects. But I would caveat the major projects with the fact that a number of the items there refer to income streams to the council. So it's not where we face more cost, it's where the income's not been quite what we'd originally budgeted. In the case of Strawberry Fields and Strawberry Meadows, we are probably about 3-4 months behind where we thought we'd be in terms of lettings. So we have let a number of units now. In fact, the majority are let, but that was slightly behind what we projected. So the income's slightly behind. So the good thing about that is that will make up. Likewise with Tatton, there have been issues there with the contracts that have been resolved. And then secondly, again, that's working up towards early new year, that'll be full. And obviously then there's income from that. So again, it's more that we're slightly behind probably where we thought we might be, rather than there being huge extra loss of income or anything more worrying. So it's a balance between saying there's factors there that have come along that were difficult to predict, such as the cost pressures, and then there's other things like timing of lettings, etc. So on that basis, Chair, there is, while it is a challenge, let's say, that is at the moment working in the right direction, and we hope that we continue to do that. As it says in the report, a lot of this is based on projections, not on actual known fact. In terms of how we balance that budget, it says there later down on page 30 that we will move, at the moment, the proposition will be, if nothing changed, is that the movement of £500,000 from the earmark reserves into the general fund, the general balances, and use that to make up that deficit, as it were, leaving just over 4.2 million in balances. Again, that could change, as we say, we're 6 months into a 12-month reporting period. So that is the overview of the revenue report, Chair.
And I think it's fair to say that we are also anticipating the government settlement numbers very late this year. Yeah, right before Christmas. So we won't get any certainty on what's happening on some of that stuff till into January in reality, because I think by the time the numbers come through to us, it'll be we're packed in working for Christmas, and we'll have to assess the detail after Christmas. It's been done quite deliberately, in my view, to avoid, scrutiny before Christmas. But who knows what they will come up with? They often come up with something we don't expect, and we'll see what it is this year. Any questions or comments on that report at all? Anybody's got? Obviously, there's a lot of information in there, a lot of breakdown. If you have anything afterwards, I'm sure Peter and or the officers will be happy to go into detail, and let's just hope that we can claw some more money back through the rest of the year. Okay. Right. On that basis, then, Peter's made the proposals detailed in paragraphs 2 and 3. So we happy to second those. Councillor Morwood, all those in favour of accepting that report, please show. Yep, good stuff. That's accepted. Thank you. And we will roll on straight on to item 6, which is the capital balance sheet monitoring report.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the report's there for members to obviously look at the capital programme, and you'll notice from this report is some little change in terms of actual budget variations approved since the last monitoring report. So if we go down to, although it is briefly mentioned in the opening paragraphs, we go to page 42, you can see there the increase of 190,000 is through 3 bodies of work. One is the adaptation grant, second is the Gillette playing fields, and third is the recreation and open space on Wigan Road. So there are 3 items where with a slight increase, so total of £190,000. In terms of the overall capital investment programme, we see that since the last quarter we've a reduction there in the programme of 4.26 million. And that's basically through slippage and reprofiling, as it explains over again on page 43, where we can see that itemised breakdown of projects that we continue to be in the programme, continue to seek to deliver, but obviously in terms of the timing, we'll slip back. So that explains that small, well, not small, but that change in the capital programme. In terms of that impact on the borrowing and investments, you can see there it mentions in paragraph 28 that there is a slight reduction in the debt interest and in the MRP. No big significant change, but a slight reduction as a consequence of some of that work being delayed. So in terms of the borrowing, then again, we see the difference, the split between the short-term and the long-term borrowing. You can see an increase there in the short-term borrowing, and that's simply because at the moment, with interest rates being high, we're doing more borrowing on short-term for obvious reasons, waiting hopefully for a period where interest rates will eventually come down, and then perhaps you might shift again back to a longer-term borrowing strategy when it's more favourable to us. But for now, it's slightly leaning the other way. And then finally, in terms of the council tax collection and business rate collection rates, again, it says outlines in the report there with the position as of September this year compared to September last year, and largely, I would say, although very small changes, differences, but fundamentally pretty much in a similar line and very much on track. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments on the capital report? Anybody got anything on that report? As Peter said, there's not much change apart from slippage, etc., around some of the impacts of interest rate changes. But okay, so on that basis, we are asked to note the report as it says in paragraph. Sorry, no, we're not. We're asked to approve the recommendations in paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, which have been proposed by Peter. Somebody second those, please. Thank you, Terry. All those in favour of those, please show. That's everybody. Thank you very much. Right. We then move on to the next item, which is item 7, which is the Chorley Q2 Performance Monitoring Report, which is again Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much. As the report says there on paragraph 6, we have at the moment we're excellent in terms of our delivery of our key projects because 90% are rated as complete or as green, and there's 1 rated amber, 1 rated red. And then in terms of the delivery measures, again, they are performing well at the moment, although 1 or 2 that are outside of our threshold. So if you may, Chair, just go through those perhaps that stand out, those that aren't on target. The local plan is rated as red. We are obviously working with our partners to try and make sure this is delivered. We've also had issues in staffing in those departments that I think members are well aware of. Unfortunately, though, given where we are compared to perhaps where we were hoping to be, that is rated as red. But like everything, I know that a lot of work is being done by officers and members to bring that back on track and get it delivered as quick as we can, because it is vital to this council that we get that local plan delivered, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. The key now is making sure that we do it as quickly as we can. As I say, working particularly to make sure our partners share our appetite for pace and an appetite for making it happen sooner rather than later. In terms of the other project, rather, that's slightly off course, rated as amber, that's the improvements to our council buildings, and we have had this debate before. But what the difference is this time is we actually set up the accommodation working group, so that includes a number of different teams throughout the council. So actually now coordinate the work that needs to take place on our buildings, and actually make sure that again over the rest of this year that we bring that back on track. Indicators, the measures that we spoke of, you can see there's a couple that are slightly off track, but probably not too worrying. There's a couple that are slightly more, that stand out a little bit more. So the number of people who participate in volunteering, we can see that although slightly off track, that is improving, and we're not far off there. And there's some detail there included in the actions that we're taking with the time credits and with our partners to actually make sure that we do everything we can to get more people engaged in volunteering. I'm sure that that will continue to be done and we'll get more people involved. But like everything, it is challenging, but that is an improvement, as I say, is where we've been in the past. In terms of the leisure centres, again, a slight improvement there, but below target. Clearly impacted by the closure of Brinscoll Baths as well. We've got to face reality. We're in the middle of a period of disruption in terms of our leisure provision. But we also had the report that came to the last full council about the financial position of the leisure company. And I think what was clear, and it was unanimous across the council, is we've got to make this work. We've got to get our leisure centres working so we attract more people, and then we can address the financial gap, as it were, that exists, because we can't keep on dealing with that. So I think there's 3 bullet points there. I think that probably slightly underplays all the work that is going on with the team that Bev's doing in her team and others to make sure that our leisure centres have a good offer and we get more people in, because it is vital that we do make sure of not just in terms of hitting this target, but in terms of the financial side as well, that we do all we can. Plus, when obviously Brinscoll, we need to when that is eventually delivered, we then get that back as well. So there's reasons to say that again. I think it's a big challenge, but we're on with it, and I'm hoping that will improve. The one that does stand out is the overall employment rate, and when the regional average at 73.8%, and our performance way below that. That seems very, very odd to me, and it does say in the report there that there's more work being done to look at this measure of economic inactivity, which it might be right, but I just don't understand. I think we'd all be picking it up anecdotally if there was a significant problem in Chorley of people who weren't in work. If we had significantly more people who were, of pensionable age or something, I could understand. Or people who'd taken early retirement or something, I perhaps could understand it. But it doesn't add up. So we do need to dig down into that. It's not that I'm saying there's no problems or it's not challenging out there. It's very challenging, but so it is everywhere else. And if the regional average is 73.8%, I don't understand how we're so far off. So I think we need to get more understanding of that before we can draw a conclusion. But clearly, it is standing out as being as way off. And I think, Chair, in terms of the key messages of that report, I think that was all.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And just on that, if you look at page 69, where it goes on about the needs of 16 to 17-year-olds who are not in education, employment and training, I think that figure is 1.9%, which is lower than our target and lower than the county average. So we've got, because the numbers have come thanks to Councillor Clifford for sending those over, we've had those numbers for Lancashire were lower. So it's not young people who are not economically active, particularly. It would appear to be an older cohort, and aside from people perhaps in COVID who stopped working and haven't gone back to work and are living on whatever money they've got or whatever it may be, or living on investment or whatever it may be. We haven't got to the bottom of that, but we are looking into it, and hopefully we'll have some answers in due course. Every so often a statistic is thrown up that's a bit odd, and that's one of them. Any questions, comments on that report at all? Anybody's got? To quote Councillor Berry when she was mayor, you're all very quiet tonight. I never thought of be quoting you, Julia. Councillor France. Thank you, Councillor France.
Yeah, I find that really quite surprising, the employment figures. I wonder how many of these people are on NHS waiting lists, given the fact that these lists are getting longer and wider and more people are sitting waiting for procedures, because that'll impact not just on the person who's maybe waiting for whatever surgery, but the partner who's probably having to care for them during that time.
I mean, I think you're right, Margaret. I think there's a number of potentials, but the bit that I don't know is that the waiting list issue is a national problem. So why does it seem that if the regional average is what it is, why are we so far lower in Chorley? I don't believe, again, I might be wrong, and we need to know, and that's the point, but I don't believe that we're inadvertently, that we are hit by that problem more than someone who's living in Leyland or someone who's living in Skelmersdale or someone who's living in Preston. That's the point I'm making. It's not that those issues aren't at play, I think they are, but why are we so much worse than what the average is? What's unique to us about those things? That's the bit. And there could be a reason. There could well be a reason, but I just don't think we've got to it yet. But there must be. Either the figure is wrong or there is a reason. Either or, we need to get to the bottom of it.
That would be doubly worrying as well if that was the case, but we'll find out in due course. Any other? Yes, Terry.
Interesting that the figure below for number of claimants, where you would expect if there was high unemployment, you'd have number of claimants bigger than average, or am I reading it wrong?
Well, this is the, and Chris will probably clarify, this is the definition of economic inactive, isn't it? Where you're not a benefit claimant, you're not a, it's not even includes pensioners, does it? But it's about where you're of work engaged but not in work or something like that. But Chris will clarify it better than I.
Yes, on the indicator that we've been discussing, it is people who are economically active, so of working age, which is 16 to 64, I think, in the current direct definition, but not on a claimant in terms of not on a job seeker. We do need to look into in more detail. We think at least part of it possibly is to do with Chorley's ageing population and potentially, as Councillor Bradley said, around the potential that actually we've had people who have left work either during or after the pandemic and decided not to go back into work. That is a working theory at the moment. One of the difficulties we have, of course, is this information from the ONS, and we can go into the definitions and look at the definitions, but we don't get to see, obviously, the raw data and the figures behind it. So we need to go and find ways of being able to interrogate that and work it out more. But no, it doesn't indicate, given those two indicators, it doesn't indicate that we've got a significant issue of unemployment of people seeking work. What it potentially indicates is that we have got fewer people being economically active than elsewhere. Now that can cause some issues, because what it can cause is it means that actually your economy doesn't grow in the same way. And what we don't also know is whether those are people who are truly choosing to be economically inactive, or whether actually they're people who would quite like to have a job of some sort, but for whatever reason, health, caring responsibilities or accessibility to job, can't get it, but they're in the fortunate position where actually they don't need to claim benefits because for whatever reason they have another source of income. So that's what we all need to look in. That's what we need to look into.
Councillor Berry's got the answer.
I say really, it's really curious, really, what's the impact of COVID. I mean, I know for a fact that quite a lot of older women are now carrying on caring for young children, because that's the situation they found themselves in, to enable particularly like key workers to keep in work during COVID. But also homeschooling is a massive rise, and that might take out some people as well.
We'll pursue the answers. Look at Chris and Polly as well to be finding those answers out. Okay. Any other questions or points on that report? No? In that case, we are asked to note the report as paragraph 2, so that's noted. Thank you very much. The next item of business is item 8, which is also Councillor Wilson, and this is the property valuation services procurement.
Thank you, Alistair. Short and sweet, this in its body. Very simply, it is, as it says on the tin, the property valuation services procurement. So the proposal is that we join forces not only with South Ribble, which is no surprise, but also in this case with Blackburn and Darwen Council, and for reasons of efficiencies and the fact that I think we believe that they have perhaps a little bit more knowledge and expertise in this field, and therefore by working collectively, we can actually get a property valuation services group, let's say, that can actually deliver what we need as a council, which is something I think, without being overcritical, on and off over the number of years we have struggled with at times, and therefore this is hopefully to bring in that higher quality level of service to our disposal, but hopefully with savings alongside it by working collectively with the two other councils. So it is as simple as that, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions, comments on that report? No. Blimey, right. So the recommendation is in paragraphs 2 and 3. Peter's proposed that, so we have to second those. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. All those in favour, please show. Excellent, great stuff. Right, we move on to item 9, which is Councillor Lowe, and it's the Chorley Council's Sustainable Building Policy Approval of Policy. All yours, Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. To provide an overview of the proposed sustainable building policy and to seek approval for the adoption of the said policy. It's been developed as a cross-council effort to ensure feasibility right across various directorates. It's been developed for use on council buildings which the council has full control over, new developments. There is a need for a sustainable building policy to make sure that the carbon footprint continues to decrease against our goal of being net zero by 2030. It's been, like I mentioned, developed alongside asset management officers. It's got 12 focus points for new developments, 10 focus points for refurbishment of existing developments, and the details of the actual policy are in Appendix 1. There is an exemption at Appendix 2 of the report, but it's only refurbishments over £200,000. So with that summary, Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Any questions or comments on that report from anybody? I think at a time when we've seen some of the government policies being rolled back on, I think it's commendable that we bring this policy forward and make every effort to do the right thing. Nobody has any questions? Or Councillor France does.
Sorry, me again.
That's right.
Just a question on the new developments. Is that new developments are all greater than a certain number of houses, or how does that work?
For you, Chair, it's just with regard to council responsible developments over 200,000. It's not actual new developments within the borough in terms of individual planning applications.
Is there any way then we can, through the local plan or through the planning policy, put something into generally for major developments within the borough?
From my knowledge, there are certain policies that will enable that to come forward in due course, but they don't supersede the national policies. They are local policies that will be in the plan that say these should be what we should be aiming for, but they're not enforceable. The national policies are what's enforceable. So, and I think, and I'm probably looking at, I don't know if Sally, but certainly Zoe and her team would know this, is the policies that going in would probably match this kind of aspiration, because that's what we're saying you should be doing. Whether we can then enforce that depends on what the actual laws in place at that time would be, because obviously the local plan we're bringing forward is for 15 years or even up to 18 years, so there could be all kinds of legislation changes. And to be fair, the legislation was put in place and then it's been rolled back on, hasn't it? And it's probably just not being enforced or not adopted fully. So I think there are, and if you read the papers as they come forward as part of the local plan working group papers, there are environmental standards in there around the development of properties, and that would be individual residences as well as commercial buildings, etc. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that report? No. In that case, then the recommendations that Adrian has put forward are that we move the recommendation in paragraph 5 to approve the adoption of that policy. He's proposed that. Somebody happy to second that, please? Councillor Morwood. All those in favour, please show. Good stuff. That's great. Thank you. That's passed. Item 10 is any urgent business. I'm not aware of anything. I note that Councillor Platt put in, Councillor Collins, apologies, Matthew, I don't need to pick those up for the meeting. So if you pick those up as well, that'd be perfect. On that basis then, very quick meeting. Thank you for your attendance and have a pleasant journey home or upstairs in my case. Thank you.